into our serious topic, tell me a little bit about, on a lighter note, I know you're getting into farming.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Tell us a bit about that.
Chickens, yeah. So at the moment, yeah, I am. I have since moving to Swansea, I have found myself wanting to be more involved in the agriculture side of life. So yeah, I've got chickens in my garden, got rabbits, and hopefully in the future, inshallah, I would like to get into farming, as in.
And you are quite big on growing fruits and vegetables. I've seen a lot of your pictures on Facebook. Okay. Were those things already there, or did you actually plant them?
The vegetables?
The vegetables.
Oh no, that was all planted. I planted all of that. So, not a lot. You know what? A lot of it did not survive. I'm not going to stand here and say that it all grew. But you know, until you try it and you test it out, you won't know. And
I have to say, this is the first year that I've gotten into garden. It's not that I haven't been interested. I've been interested in watching and enjoying, but not sort of getting my hands dirty. Yeah. But this year I've had to, because I've had to sort the garden. I ended up planting quite a lot of things.
Yeah.
And it's really nice knowing where your foods come from.
Yeah.
And just the fact that there's no chemicals and the taste. As soon as you pick something and cook it, the taste is on a completely different. It's just so
and
fresh.
It's good for the children as well to get involved in things.
Well, that's
like
why
that.
I did it. I actually did it so my children can see that food actually came from plants and ground, not the shops.
Yes, exactly.
How would you inspire other people to try it?
I would just say, you know, it doesn't matter how small your garden is. If you don't have, even if you don't have any like soil in your garden, there's so many things that you can buy now which you can put soil in and actually.
Well, that's the other thing. People might be thinking, you know what, I have no soil, I only have a little balcony, but actually you can plant things in pots like herbs and things, and they grow really well.
Yeah, and even strawberries, like in the summer, they're really good. Even just put in a plot in a pot, you can grow them, and they're so lovely. Strawberries straight from the plant is just.
This is the first year I've actually done that, as all the strawberries. And literally just put it in little pots and they actually just
And they just grow outside of the pot.
I have to say, it is hard work when you do it on a bigger scale, okay? I can't hide from that. It is hard work, but it is worth it.
Yes, it is, yes. Yeah.
Well, Jazakallah khair, can you come back in future and update us how your farming is going? It'd be good to know where our meat actually comes from.
Yeah.
But before then, let's go to News Bites. So we have with us today the headline, Teaching Boys Positive Masculinity, and that's from The Observer.
Yeah.
I found that a really interesting article. Having had a girl first, and now the fact that I've got a boy, the personality is very different. And you do wonder how much of positive masculinity do you want to encourage? Because obviously they can be extremes.
Yes.
Just to give us a bit of background on the article.
I read through the article, and it basically is just talking about role models and how the parents behave will ultimately kind of determine how the children will be, which we know that's not always the case. You can be the best of parents, the kindest of parents, parents that don't shout or scream, and children will still turn out to be screaming adults. So it doesn't always work out that way. But what I got from the article is that if we play that role in being that type of role model, that will rub off, you know, good behaviour, a good character, removing anger, that then hopefully...
They do connect it. One of the things that the writer connects it with is the fact that encouraging positive masculinity can help towards reducing violence.
Yeah, domestic
violence. Yeah. That's an interesting point, and one of the things that she said was a lot of the people who go on to commit domestic violence are people who suffer domestic violence themselves in childhood. Yeah. So even in terms of beating the children or beating the wives, it's because when they grew up, as growing up, they had that. Yeah. So, and then
witnessed it.
Even as adults, their role models would have been their parents. Yeah. So consciously or unconsciously, they carry that and inflict it on the children. Having said that, one of my worries, what do we mean by positive masculinity and negative masculinity? Because masculinity is masculinity, right? Yeah. And then there's abuse.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, a boy is a boy, and you want to raise him to understand what his gender is, what his identity is, what his roles are.
Yeah, but also, you want him to understand the masculinity side of a man, but you also don't want him to shy away from, because there's this thing of a woman's in the kitchen and the man goes out to work, and the two don't kind of intertwine, but it's about growing the man up to say that actually it's okay for you to wash the dishes, and it's okay if she goes out to work. It's that kind of mentality.
Again, isn't that down to our misconception of what, as Muslims,
of what the roles are.
Getting from the perception of from Islam and looking at our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's all there. The fact that he helped his wives, he did a lot of his own things. So even the issue of being able to cook or clean the house, who put that into the feminine bracket? This is it as a human being, individual thing you have to survive,
it's just culture, right? I think culture is just kind of taken over, and I think this is not just, you know, within Asian communities or African communities, it's even within European communities, you know, even my own, you know, I'm Portuguese, and even within our own communities it's the same thing. It's just you grow up with that, you know, your mum's in the kitchen cooking and cleaning, and your dad goes out to work. When he comes home, he sits on the sofa and he just waits for everything to come to him. And this is what the men grow up with. And then when they get married, they expect the same thing. So it's about changing. It's about changing that.
There is a rise in sisters ensuring that the sons know how to cook just as the daughters do, and the daughters know how to defend themselves just as their sons do. It's not that we're mixing the gender, it's that every individual, putting aside that they're a man or a woman, as human beings, you're able to look after yourself.
Thank you.
Building skills, life skills.
It's just basic skills, basic life skills.
I want to know. It's like, I want to know if something happens to me that my husband's able to feed my children food other than takeaway.
Feed himself.
I mean, he's young right now. It's his father that should be able to feed him, right? Rather than relying on relatives. And sometimes in culture you find that when the wife's not there, or the wife's ill, or wife's at the hospital, the relatives jump in and cook for them because, oh my God, how's the husband going to cook? No, alhamdulillah, that is there. Support should be there. But if needs be, a man should be able to look after himself and look after the children. And likewise raise the children to be able to look after themselves.
And it goes down to that whole saying as well, you know, when a father looks after the children or he's babysitting, but when a woman's looking after children, she's just looking after her children. It's the same thing, you know. He's not babysitting, he's the father, and he's doing his role by looking after the children. It's about changing the mindsets. And how I've got 2 boys, and my boys get involved in the housework. You know, if I ask them to clean up, they'll clean up, and I plan to bring them up in that manner, that they do as much as their sister do, and she does the things that they do. If she wants to
and at the same time to still be the gentleman, still be, you know, the person that is ready to take care or even help someone in need. I think sometimes, do you think there's an element of not building strength in a person that or even people are filled with a certain fear or not understanding what their role is? And there's a lot of research that's come out where even especially say men in the UK often confused as to what women expect from them. So I think a discussion is to be had. Unfortunately, we probably won't have all the answers on the show right now. But alhamdulillah, we have Islam, and maybe we as Muslims should understand that.
It's just to look into the Sunnah and see how the Prophet ﷺ was with his wives, and you know, he was active. He was active in his households. He didn't shy away from housework.
It's interesting. Sometimes we forget about those sunnahs and focus on other sunnahs that are more desirable. Jazakallah khair for that, sis. We are off to a break now. Stay with us. See you back in a few minutes. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. You have just tuned into Women's AM. This morning I am joined by Leila Rodriguez, and we are exploring life after divorce. Now sadly, sometimes it seems that there is no life after divorce, and if there is, it's a miserable one at that. But does it have to be that way? Of course, this is a live show and we want to hear from you. Let us know your thoughts by calling the studio on the number on the screen that should be appearing soon. Now, you called it life after divorce. And I know we had a laugh about this earlier. It sounds like life after death. But that is how it's viewed sometimes. Why do you think that is? What are some of the fears that surrounding divorce?
Because of, you know, it's that stigma, isn't it? Oh, you know, she's a divorcee now. As for women, you know, it's like never get married again. Or if you're going to get married, you're going to end up in a polygamous marriage because nobody else will have you. And then, you know, it's also as well of the sisters who want to get divorced, but the fears of what will happen to the children, you know, how will the children handle this? So there's lots of fears surrounding the divorce, whether before or after. And then as well, how will you cope financially? You know, will you be able to do it by yourself, emotionally, physically? Because, you know, it's a draining job as a single mother.
It is, and I think we all know people who are probably going through some sort of difficulty, and it's just I have to say, look, I have to give a warning beforehand before you know, people call in and tell me I'm encouraging divorce. I really am not. We are not. The reason we're having this discussion is because divorce is there for a reason, and sometimes people are in a marriage that's either abusive, mentally draining, and is actually unhealthy, and maybe there are times when divorce is necessary, but even in those situations where people are suffering violent abuse, that divorce isn't seen as an option because that just seems worse.
Yeah.
It seems worse
and
than being in that
sometimes as well, you
relationship.
just become incompatible. Things happen, and it's better to, this is why Allah has allowed divorce, because it's better for you to, perhaps it may be better to divorce than to stay in a marriage where you are literally ruining each other's lives. A marriage is supposed to be blissful, it's supposed to be peaceful, it's supposed to be a union that, that you look forward to when you come home. It's supposed to be a union that's supposed to help you towards Jannah.
And I mean, there are couples who want to try, genuinely want to try, even though there might be that incompatibility. And alhamdulillah, if it's for that reason, that's between them and their Lord.
Of course,
they want to try, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, that is
but
a good
then
thing.
there are those who don't want to because they are mentally and physically drained. Or maybe want something better. In that case, is it such a bad thing?
No, this is what I mean. It has to be, people have to stop looking at divorce as this end of the world kind of thing that happens to a person. Yeah, it's bad, it's horrible, it's painful, and it is like literally, when you're going through a divorce, it is literally like somebody has died, but they're still standing in front of you breathing. It is painful, and for both parties. But you know what? It passes, and
but
where
do some of those fears come from? Why is it there? If it's already, we know this, it's there as an opening and an option, as I said, there's a door there in Islam that enables it. Where do the fears come from?
I think it's to do with the community. I mean, the way the community treats divorcees. I mean, in the Sahaba's time, if someone got divorced, you get snapped up straight away. But in these days, if you're divorced, you get looked down to, or even to the fact that the woman generally gets blamed for the marriage breaking down. It's...
In some cultures, they have this saying that if the woman is good, the world is good. If the woman is bad, the world is bad.
Gosh, that's a lot of pressure on the woman.
That's quite a dangerous perception to have. And it's not one that comes from Islam. I think also just for sisters who are possibly going through that situation where they are struggling, either possibly will be facing that or are going through it. Is there a life after the divorce? After the struggle, is there a life?
Definitely. I mean, it takes a while. You have to understand, this is where I talk about in my book, you have to understand about the healing process. You have to understand about the grief process, what you're going to be going through. And it takes a while. But, it's about not giving up and understanding that once this passes, there is so much that you've got the whole world to discover. I found for myself that I looked for myself, as in I found myself after divorce and found peace, which I probably wouldn't have found if I was still married. And I also rediscovered a lot about myself. For example, farming, as we was talking about. I found things about myself that I didn't know I was into, and even something simple as scuba diving. I'm so in love with scuba diving, and it's something that I want to pursue now. I would have never done that if I was still married. So there is, it's just about the healing, about giving yourself that time to heal, and whatever means you need to take to heal, as in, because I found that a lot of sisters suffer from depression after divorce. And this is the one thing that I say is, do not let yourself stay in that place. You have to fight it. You have to fight it, and you have to try and move forward. Marriage is over. You can't go back now. So you have to look forward. And the way to do that is to look at yourself and say, what do I need? And what can I do?
Did you discover that actually you had more strength than you believed you may have?
Most certainly, yeah. I mean, being a single mother, I thought I wasn't going to cope well because it's just me and my 3 children. And I also moved out to Swansea as well, so, no support. But I found that actually I could cope quite well, and I have coped quite well, and my children are very happy, and you find that actually you can do more than you think. When Allah puts you in a situation, it just goes back to what He says. He doesn't give you more than what you can handle. So if He's put you in that situation, you have to trust Him that you can do this, and just do your best.
And some sisters might be watching and thinking, right now I'm in the dumps, and I don't see what you are talking about. I don't see that glimmer of light.
Yeah.
How do I get through that? How do I crawl to that light?
Inshallah, the one thing I would say is hold on to your deen. That is, for me, what got me through. Making sure that I did my salah, I read Quran all the time. my dua became literally my tool of getting through. I would make dua about everything I wanted, everything. There is nothing that you can't make dua, and Allah hears. The other thing is having a support system. You know, reach out. Don't just stay at home and look after your children and stay in this dark circle. Even if it's just one friend you have that you can call up every other day to speak to and let your emotions out, then do it. And if you don't have anyone, alhamdulillah, I'm on Facebook. Send me a message, inshallah.
Oh,
and
that's lovely.
there's loads of, we have a great team, the support sisters, and inshallah we can step in.
Do you actually have a team specifically
Yeah,
for?
we have, so it's generally for reverts, it's called Revert Support Group, but we don't, you know, if a sister came to us, whether she's a revert or not, and she's in need of support, then inshallah we'll do it. I also, as well, you know, I have loads of sisters who are NLP therapists, who are in counselling, so whenever I see that there's a sister that is literally, she cannot come out of that depression, I will refer them. And generally we'll try and raise the funds.
Is that a Facebook group or is there a website?
No, it's on WhatsApp, so you have to be referred. So if they can find me on Facebook and inbox me, and then inshallah we'll take it from there.
If there are sisters out there who want to get in touch with Layla and seek support, if you can't find Layla, you can find myself, Shahina Khatun, on Facebook. Get in touch. It's just great to know. I mean, we can have the discussions, but just to also direct people to where they can get support if they are in a difficult situation. But again, just to go back to the fact that it can be a real struggle, and there can be many, many dark days. I mean,
but you have to want to come out of it. That's the one thing that when I speak to sisters is that if you don't put the effort in, and if you don't want yourself to move forward, nothing's going to happen. It doesn't matter how many therapists we put, you know, trying to help you. It doesn't matter how many sisters are around to support you. You have to want to actually move forward with your life, and you have to want to get better.
And I think there is a truth in the fact that no one can really feel your pain other than Allah. No one and yourself. No one can truly feel your pain, and no one can heal your pain either. They can't feel it and they can't heal it. I know I've probably got some poetry going on there, but it's true. And I think only you feel it, and only you can drag yourself out of it.
It's true. And that's where dua comes in. You know, talk to your Lord. Tell him everything. Doesn't matter how silly you may feel. Just tell him exactly how you feel. I found that whenever I made dua and I just let it all out to Allah, is so different than letting it out to a friend, you know, because he knows how you feel. And the difference with the making dua and letting Allah know how you feel is that he's listening to that dua, and he's going to answer that dua in a way that you probably would never expect, inshallah.
I think that's lovely. I think we're going to go off to a break soon, and I do want to come back to that, explore the fact that sometimes even it's easy to say, when we give advice to people, it's very easy to say turn to Allah, Allah. But sometimes even turning to Allah and crawling to Allah becomes such a
hard
chore,
really hard,
such a struggle. But once you get yourself there and you keep going, and you have to do it, and Allah says, you know, the closest that you come to Allah is when you're in sujood, when your head is down there on the ground. Go down in sujood, cry to Allah. You will relief from crying to someone who can actually change your situation.
That's it. Because you know, another human being can't. And reality is, you know, people will support you, they'll be there, but they have to go home back to their own lives, and then it's you and your children again, if you have any. So you know, you have to one, want to get yourself out of it. Two, use the deen to keep yourself, you know, to keep your iman high. And three, you have to remember that if you are a sister that has children, they're watching you. And I remember watching a video of a brother who, it's a mental health video, and he was saying that he now suffers from depression, and his mum got divorced and she fell into really bad depression, and this continued on for so long that he then picked up the depression, and he's now suffering from depression for the rest of his life. So
I mean, that's a really interesting angle in terms of impact on children, and this is something we want to explore after the break as well. So we've touched on a really important part of this discussion, but unfortunately we do have to go on a break. Stay with us where we'll continue to talk about this topic.